Hey everyone, it's Alex Kahaya from the Index Podcast. I want to tell you about Mantis, a groundbreaking platform that's simplifying the way we interact across blockchains. If you're a developer or just into DeFi, you'll want to pay attention. Mantis enables trust-minimized transactions across different chains, letting you trade or execute actions seamlessly while getting the best possible outcome, all without the usual complexities. Imagine being able to move assets and settle transactions across blockchains easily with maximum value extraction, all while staying secure and decentralized. That is what Mantis is bringing to the table. Mantis is an official sponsor of the Index Podcast, and their founder Omar and I regularly host a new live stream series on X called Everything SVM. We have these live streams weekly, and if you want to keep up with what's happening in the Solana ecosystem, especially as it relates to the new innovative deployments of the Solana virtual machine, you should tune into this live stream. Check them out at mantis.app and follow them on X at Mantis, MANTIS. At the Index, we believe that people are worth knowing, and we thank Mantis for enabling us to tell the stories of the people who are building the future of the internet. We'll see you on the other side. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Index. I'm your host, Alex Kahaya, and this week I'm excited to be joined by Guido Pardini, the CEO of Shaga, a cloud gaming platform that was part of the Solana Labs incubator recently. This is all part of a series that we're doing on Solana-based startups, specifically ones that were at the incubator hosted by Solana Labs. I was fortunate enough to see Guido talking about Shaga at the Solana Foundation offsite a couple months back, and super impressed with what you guys are building. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Alex. It was a pleasure meeting you back then and seeing you now again. So yeah, thanks for having me.
So I think what you guys are building is super cool. But before we get into what you're building, can we talk about why you're here? Why are you here building this? And maybe just share with people who haven't heard of you before personally, just some of your story of how you got to be working on this.
Yeah, like depends like how far back we want to go.
As far as you want.
I think that the time that I realized that I could just build things was when I was in in high school, and basically we're talking about 2014 something, and in Italy, so the level of technology is always like a couple of years behind US and big cities. So we had at my high school a 3D printer, and when I saw that thing, I went crazy because you could design anything that you could come up with, and it would build the thing automatically. And I've always been a nerd for the makers thing, the makers movement, where you have you cut the wood and you build things. So that was my first experience was building this portable pill reminder for elders, and this was part of a simulation inside the high school of entrepreneurship, to get kids to hey, this is how the world works. You can build things and sell things. So I basically learned to use CAD, and I designed this thing, which actually I got it here it's pretty cool. It's this thing where basically the way it works is that there is some sections inside, and each section would have some pills, and this is where the electronics would have gone. And this opening here, you open and you took the pill out, and here there would be some LEDs. It was called L pill. But yeah, it was super cool because I learned how to use CAD, and I 3D printed the thing, and it was amazing. But after that, a bit more into the real things. I went to university and I studied computer science and electrical engineering in Milan, in Italy. And there were some events where elders, when I was in the first or second year, they go there and they showcase oh, I built this with my PhD or like some stuff. So I was always fascinated by like that cool things. Like I remember one time there was a group of people that were building like these generative topological like structures that optimize, like for example, bicycles to minimize like the weight and maximize the structure strength. So anyway, how I joined Shaga is there's a little bit of politics as well, because like I'm European, and like after the 2009 like financial crisis, like there was a lot of resentment towards big banks and like the youth. So initially, like it started as some sort of like rebellious act, like you start learning about Bitcoin and how this thing is supposed to like be better than banks, and like you get into the rabbit hole. But then like the thing that I really appreciated about my journey in Solana is that you get past that teenage anarchist phase of your life, and you go into like, oh, you know what, you can build products that make the life of people better, and like sometimes decentralization actually makes the things better. For example, like in our case with Shaga, like decentralization makes it possible to reduce like the distance between like a gaming PC and a gamer, so that the latency is lower. But we can dive deeper into that. So anyway, this is a bit of like a chaotic story of like how I got into like this place right here, right now.
Very cool. Yeah, we actually share a commonality with the pill tracking device. I used to work with Fortune 500 companies. My skill set is like how to take early stage products and technologies to market. And one of those companies was a big health tech company that had a small group of engineers that had built the device you're talking about. Very different like form factor than yours, but same idea, right? Tracking pills for elderly, and we did a bunch of market validation on it, and it was pretty interesting. But yeah, I would love to. Let's talk about gaming and latency, which is the distance, the time it takes for packets to get sent back and forth between someone's a gamer and the server that the game's running on. Can you just talk a little bit about that problem and kind of the differences between the centralized architecture that exists in the gaming world, what that looks like, and then Shaga, which is the decentralized architecture?
Yeah, sure. So like the technology at the core is like kind of the same. So you are a gamer and you want to play a game, but you don't have a gaming PC or like a console or anything that can run the game. So what you do is you leverage the internet. So you are playing remotely from like your house, your living room, whatever, to another place where the actual compute device is. And basically, like you are sending controls that modify the game state, like jump, shoot, move left, right, like all of the commands that you usually use in a game. And you receive back like the screen that you would see if you had your PlayStation or like your console. Like you would see the screen, and that would be the gaming loop. Like you send controls and the unit sends back the input. So the difference between like decentralized and centralized is that like the main pain point for gamers is that like if you go on Reddit, like everyone is like saying, oh, cloud gaming sucks for me, like Xbox Cloud is too laggy, like I cannot play this, like I'm not, like I want my refund, like this is not worth paying for. So the idea with decentralized in a decentralized fashion is that, of course, technology is the same, but you get to reduce the distance because instead of a data center, like you have someone else's computer. And actually, like what I appreciate about the way we're doing things is that like there are some companies in Web3 and they're doing like cloud gaming, but they're still using data centers and they're using crypto. So like, why would you use crypto if like it's not improving like a fundamental metric for your product, like the latency? So like for us, like crypto makes it possible to have this decentralized consensus among like providers and users, because like it's kind of like with Helium, like you don't have one single company that builds like that distributes like the gaming PCs for everyone. So you have these people that have the supply and they can bring it online, and then you have other people that are on the demand side, which like, you know what, I want to play games. Like, is there anyone in the area that can like bring me games? So like, yeah, that's I would say like a bit of like Shaga and yeah, the landscape.
Well, it's interesting. You brought up the Helium example, and it they're one of the companies I'm most excited about and projects that I'm most excited about in crypto. And we've seen how much adoption they've gotten. You know, there's like over 100,000 subscribers to their mobile network, and then what's even more interesting to me is that they're leveraging their network with other telecoms as a backhaul provider. I think that's the right term. But essentially, like if you're using T-Mobile and you're in the middle of the countryside and there's no service, but there's a Helium node there, you can piggyback Helium's network and get cellular service. And this is kind of common in that industry. And they're seeing a ton of adoption this way. And it occurs to me that in the future, you guys will start out very similar to how they did, which is like peer-to-peer gaming and individuals just like using whatever games are available on your network. And that's a question I have, is like what they are, what games people can play. But eventually you could see these bigger game companies leveraging your technology and the network to act as a system that reduces their latency, which is something I hadn't thought of when we first talked. The first time I saw you guys pitch, like that's actually very interesting. So can you tell me, do you have any data on the problem for these big gaming companies? Like, what's the churn rate? Do you know like how many gamers are just like pissed off that they can't play, whatever game, Counter-Strike or Halo, with their friends because it's too laggy? How big is that problem for these gaming companies?
Yeah, like first, I would say that the thing about Helium and the big telecom companies is like pretty interesting to me, because like some people say like, oh, like are you going to get acquired by like big companies? And like, actually no. And like the very beautiful thing is that like the people that participate in the network, like they kind of get acquired, because like when the big telecom company needs to do this offloading of their service, basically they are paying directly the output owners. So like that's the beautiful thing. And I think that there could be a way in which like in the future, like given this decentralized network, if it reaches like a density that is like sufficient, you would possibly start to see like Xbox Cloud maybe using a white labeled Shaga solution, where like they are just using the compute units, like the PCs that are closer to where their demand is. So yeah, I think that that's really beautiful, because like it removes this idea of like, you're gonna get acquired and like big companies are going to ruin everything and like you're gonna lose the magic of it. But no, I mean, like they can like offload their workloads, and like the network can still work in a decentralized fashion around like
Well, this brings up a really good point though that I think is important to stress. And I'll give another example of another company that's been really good at this, which is a cash network, aka SH. So Greg Osorio there is like an open source maxi. He's one of the coolest entrepreneurs I know, who's built like a massive open source community around a cache, and they're a decentralized compute network, and anybody can contribute to it. And so he invested in a company called Brev. I don't know exactly what they do. I've got to ask Greg, but they got acquired by NVIDIA, and Brev was integrated with a cache, and so now NVIDIA is integrated with a cache. Few people would probably know this unless you follow Greg on Twitter and you've seen him bull post about it. But he's rightfully excited about that. I mean, no matter how small that integration is, it's a huge deal. And it's similar to how Helium is integrating with all these telecom providers and how you could integrate. One of the things that enables the thing you're saying about the people owning the network to actually be true is if the software and the hardware is open source. So in your case, the hardware, people own the hardware, they bought it like a gaming PC. That doesn't really have to be open source in their use case. In the Helium example, there were no nodes. You can't just like buy these things off the shelf. And so they open sourced the hardware. so that any provider, any hardware manufacturer could go and produce these nodes and then sell them to network operators. It was a brilliant move on their part, and it's a reason why they have this like vibrant ecosystem of sellers of their hardware. It's not their, I mean, their hardware designs, right? It's not their hardware. And in doing that, they took out this big bottleneck that hardware companies have, right? Their token economics created demand for the hardware, but manufacturing hardware is very hard if you're not a hardware company already. So why become one if you don't have to be? They don't care about making money off of hardware devices. And so I say that to you, like, just as an argument for open source. You need parts of it, at least, like the networking stack, like whatever allows a person to actually run the software on their hardware. It needs to be open source for this very reason. That means that no matter what happens to Shaga, the network can survive without you. Because you'll have all these maintainers at that point. And Greg, going back to Akash, they've killed it at that. Like, really, I mean, they've got so many teams contributing to Akash now.
Yeah. I think that is like the test for decentralization that people usually refer to. Like, what happens if you disappear? Like, is the network disappearing with you? Then maybe you're not that decentralized. If the network is still on, like, maybe that's a success story. So yeah, in our case, like, the thing that are going to be open source are like the node software that you run like on your PC, because like imagine like a lot of people would want to know like, what are you doing with my hardware? Because like there are some DePINs where like it's not really transparent like what the resources that the nodes are opting into sharing are like use and how, and like that could become an issue like if like if you have these nodes that start maybe like degrading hardware, because like maybe like sometimes like I remember like back in the days when there was a like mining, like proof of work mining was still like going around like a lot, like a lot of people would get their hardware broken because maybe they misconfigured the overclock, or like simply because like they kept the hardware like running for too much time uninterrupted and they didn't have like enough cooling. So like what happens there? Like if the network is decentralized, like who do you go to for like warranty or refund or like so yeah, I do believe that being mindful of like how the contributors like hardware is used is super important for like a healthy like DePIN, so that like you know what you are like losing or like what you are consuming. So yeah, definitely align on that.
So talk to me about what games can be played, because my understanding is like there's licensing issues, there's stuff like that. So you can't just like play any game you want on Shaga today. What games could I play once it's launched? And is it launched? Like, where are you in the process of developing this?
Yeah, so like that's really interesting because like when we were thinking about like how are we going to solve the cold start issue, like of course like network incentives can work, but if you make your entire assumption about like tokens goes up saves everything, like that's a wrong assumption. So like what we figured out was like you know what, like if we leverage the relationship that there is between the supply and the demand, like maybe we could have the supply onboarding the demand. And this was sparked by an early conversation that Shaga, like the team, had with Ebai from Helium, and he was pointing out that like the very cool thing about Shaga, the very lucky thing for us, is that like the supply side and the demand side, they are kind of aligned on one thing, and that thing is gaming. While it was very hard for Helium on his words, because like on the demand side, you have people that just want to use the internet. So like, I don't care what is a carrier wave. Like, I don't care what is a hotspot. Like, I just want internet. And on the other side, like you'd have these gigabrains that would operate the antennas and the hotspots and all of that. So it was hard to align supply and demand, he said. But with us, like the lucky thing is that at least in the beginning, like without having to buy a new gaming PC, like if you have a gaming PC, it's likely because sometime in your life, like you were into playing games, like maybe now you have a family or you have a job or like you don't want to play anymore and you have that gaming PC like sitting idle there and you want to put it to use. But you were interested into games. And to go back to the question, like what games can you play? So the strategy in the beginning is that the node is going to play together with the clients. So it's kind of like sometimes when I was in university, like I wanted to play with my friends, but they didn't have gaming PCs. So like we could not hang out together. So like what we're doing is we're developing both clients that are like iOS and Android and Windows nodes. So the first product internally is called like FriendGrid, and like it's going to be released like we're trying to make it for Breakpoint, but probably it's going to be like end of September. And the core thing there is that you as a node, you invite friends over and you can play with them and you can have these unique experiences where maybe you turn a game that is like single player, like Fortnite, into a game that is actually a multiplayer, because like there are a lot of cool features that like we have designed like around like networking and like rotating controllers around. So in the beginning, it's a bit of a social thing, and it's mainly a way for us to start getting distribution like the soon as possible, because like we were puzzled in the beginning by like are we going the decentralized Xbox Cloud from the beginning? And the thing that you were pointing out, like the issue is with the licensing. So like if you go and you say like, fuck it, like I don't care about licenses, then probably you need like a very, very, very decentralized network, because like then you start to get into like the gray zone of piracy. But for us, like we wanted to make it like not a pirate network, but like a legitimate network. So this is the spectrum is we start from like something where the node and the client are friends, and like the client is enabled to play together with the node, and then gradually like we get towards like the decentralized Xbox Cloud. So clients will be able to receive a notification that says like, hey, you know what? Like from now on, like you can also play with like from the hardware of strangers, like the games that you like. And for the nodes, they will receive a notification that says like, hey, from now on, like you can start to earn money by serving like clients in your area. So like that's like how it's gonna work like from the beginning.
So in the beginning, just like let me just break this down a little bit. I've got some friends. They all play Halo. We all want to play Halo together, but it's really hard to do with the latency issues on Xbox Cloud. So I can download this client onto my computer and load Halo there and play it with my friends, because they download your client and then they can access and interact with that game. But this isn't on this is like peer to peer, but not like them randomly selecting nodes to play with. It's just us. So it's like as if they came over to my house, we hooked up our controllers to the Xbox and started playing. And that's not like a gray area from a licensing standpoint. It's just them doing what they would do in person virtually on a peer to peer, a very limited like peer to peer basis. Am I getting that right? That's like V0.1 of what you're shipping in the end of September.
Yeah. So like you got it right. Like the V001 like is exactly that. So you have these pockets of friends. So the network is not super interconnected and interchangeable, because there are of course like trust issues. So like we are taking security very seriously, and like we have developed a solution for what we call like self-custodial Web3 game streaming. So like basically like the issue that Web3 games faces when Web3 game face when they want to have a game streaming is that like since there is a wallet involved in the game and you are trying to maybe play from a shadow PC or like from GCP or like from the cloud, like you'd have to import like your wallet into a foreign device, and like that's really like a big no-no. But in terms of like the when the network starts to get more connected outside of like these pockets of friends, that's probably like Q1 25. Like we're gonna pilot something by the end of the year, and yeah, in the beginning, also to comply like with the license stuff. Like there's going to be two modes. One is what we call like bring your own license, which is kind of like the shadow PC like way where you like you play the library that you bought on Steam or Epic Games or like Electronic Arts or whatever. And yeah, like you play with that, and so yeah, that's like pretty much like how we're trying to like navigate. So like we have the clear objective is like we want people to enjoy like a decentralized Xbox Cloud where like the latency is reduced to the physically lowest possible. But I mean, it's we're trying to navigate the product space and like to get there.
Yeah, it sounds challenging. Sounds hard.
I mean
Difficult
that's what I
environment.
like about that. That's what I like about like the DePIN stuff, is because like compared to like some other categories in Web3, like there's way more stuff to build, and like I would say like a much more positive potential impact that on the people's
Well,
life.
the good thing though is that there are some Web3 games that would probably be happy to make sure that you can do what you want to do on a decentralized version of your thing without the license restrictions. You know, Star Atlas is an example that I think would be interested. I think you know the Sonic SVM guys might be an interesting team to talk to if you're not already talking to already. You know, they've got a purpose built SVM chain, but for gaming. And I know that their whole thing is giving studios tools. And one reason why a small studio probably doesn't publish their own game is because of the technical challenge and the infrastructure costs of building Xbox Cloud. And you guys can essentially provide them with Xbox Cloud, but they don't have to pay anything for it, which is really interesting, right? Like this is the power of DePIN. You know, you can just hand it to the studio and be like, here, put your game on it. We're not charging you anything. In fact, we'll probably help you load it up if you want, you know, so that like, I don't know the right word, but like integrate, you know, um, pretty interesting actually.
Yeah, and you know, like we believe that Web3 gaming is going to become like a very cool thing. And like, look what I have on my TV over there.
I can't see
That's the
it.
Can you see it?
Well, it's just blurry on my end, but
Oh,
it won't be blurry for other people, but I can't see it because of the bandwidth. But it's we need Shaga for streaming for streaming
yeah.
this conversation. What's it say?
Oh, it's the Shaga Odyssey. Like it's
Oh, okay.
the thing that we announced, and yeah, it's the first Web3 gamepad, and it plays a role in this because like a lot of people when they think about fully on-chain games and like Web3 gaming, like uh, they are thinking mainly about the infrastructure, but not on like how is the user going to interact with like the ecosystem that you're building, like the
Mm-hmm.
features that are there. And like Odyssey is very special there because like I think that it represents like at best like the idea of Shaga, and like Shaga, we didn't say that yet, but it's short for shared gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that like this generation of consoles and gaming, like it was the first one where you actually had removed a disc reader from the consoles, and the distribution of games was mainly done through the cloud, and like downloaded the updates over the internet and all of that. And I tend to think about like these stuff as thresholds in evolution for the bandwidth. So when the bandwidth gets high enough, like I don't know if like I told you that I'm Italian, so like technology here was pretty like outdated compared to like the rest of the world. So probably you remember when there was a time of email and like downloading MP3 files from the internet and then like sharing them with friends with Bluetooth. So like you started to have Spotify when
we
the
didn't
threshold.
we didn't share them with Bluetooth. We didn't
Oh.
share them with Bluetooth back. I'm a little older than you think. So.
Yeah. But the idea is that when the bandwidth got like big enough, then you started to have Spotify, because like the bandwidth got faster, that you could actually download the music as you were listening to it. And now like with the gaming consoles, like they are removing the disk reader, because you can download the updates on your console, like, and there is no need anymore for like the disk to be distributed in the stores and all of that. So I mean, the thing is, bandwidths are going like exponentially. Like inside of laboratories, like people are testing like fiber optics that can reach like terabit per second of speed of like. So the theoretical limit is very, very high, and the idea is that like once you reach the threshold where like you can play games faster than it takes for you to download them, then like you will move into this next paradigm where like why having a gaming console when like you can have a phone and like something to like make it comfortable for you to play. So like that's where the Odyssey like plays and comes into the picture. So the idea is that like we don't know like what's the next generation of consoles is going to look like, but then the one after that is definitely going to be like a screen and a controller, like something where you see the game and something where you like interact with the game to control signals and all of that. So like that's like how we're thinking about things.
Very cool. So we're at the top of the show here, and I always ask the same question, but what have I not asked you that I should have asked?
Why Solana?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, and I was talking with some guys from Hotspotty in a Twitter space recently, and like we were talking about like how did you started with Solana, why Solana, and like the thing for me that was that I was a bit of an Ethereum maximalist, like in the beginning, like we all have sins in our life. So like I realized that like why would you like, let's say that you get to the year 2100 and you want to sync Ethereum from the Genesis block, like it's gonna take forever for you to do that, to sync from Genesis block. So the idea that I appreciate about Solana is that what really matters is the state on flight, kind of like, so like the state that validators have in like hot storage, like in RAM. So that's like the thing that I thought like, oh yeah, now like these design space is opening up like immensely, because like you can have a much lower block times, because the 30-ish minutes with Bitcoin and the 12 minutes with Ethereum, they were mainly like self-inducted like constraints to make sure that people would be able to sync like after a long time. But like Tolly said, like fuck that, like we're gonna throw like cores, we're gonna throw bandwidth, and like the past is the past. Like what matters is that the validators at that time like didn't find any like fraud in the state transitions. But once you are in the present, then you kind of like accept the presence for what it is. So to make products that have a meaningful impact, like the performances are really important because people are like, I don't care if it's decentralized, like people are willing to give their personal data to Facebook, or like they don't care about this stuff, sadly for them. But yeah.
Well, I actually have one more question from you that popped up, but like, what's the most important thing you learned going through the incubator with Solana Labs? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So it was great because it was building on top of the like things that I learned from building in the Solana ecosystem in the past, which is, as I was saying, like product culture. Like what really matters is like how people feel when they use your thing, and like that's really different from like all of the academic culture that it has like kind of like fallen into for a bit. So yeah, I would say it was probably more of like some sort of Silicon Valley culture of like, what are you talking about? Like just build it and like get feedback on it. Like your assumption, like test them. So like really a lot of pragmatism, and like I think that's a very good approach in life in general.
Perfect. Yeah. Really appreciate you coming on the show, and look forward to seeing you in person in Singapore soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the time, Alex. It was a pleasure catching up again. So yeah, looking forward to Singapore.